Welcome to Mrs. Moneybags Live. This episode is sponsored by quickequity.ca. Quickequity.ca, getting you to your money fast by providing customized mortgage solutions to Canadians all across the country. I am your host, Nicole Williams, aka Mrs. Moneybags, Mortgage Agent Level 2. We go live Monday to Friday. We're keeping you posted on the latest financial news, developments, and economic trends, helping our viewers make informed decisions about their money. Reminder to do your own research. This show is intended to be for information purposes only, and let's get into it. So let's discuss some industry headlines. So I know yesterday we had a little bit of choppy audio. Thank you for all those who are staying by us and standing by us. And today is going to be an awesome day. So let's get into the industry headlines for today. So small businesses brace for pandemic loan repayment deadline. Thousands of Canadian small businesses that received federal loans during the pandemic are starting to see that this week's deadline is looming. And with extension hopes fading, some face the possibility of permanent closure. Businesses that took out a Canada Emergency Business Account loan in 2020 or 2021 have until this Thursday to repay their outstanding balance and receive up to $20,000 of loan forgiveness. Those that do not repay by January 18th's deadline will lose out on the forgivable portion of the loan, and the remaining balance will begin to accrue interest at a rate of 5% per year until December 31st, 2026. Terry Shaw, who is an owner of a grill and pub in Edmonton, Alberta, is wondering what he will do once the repayment deadline arrives. Customer traffic at his eatery never fully rebounded from the pandemic, he told BNN Bloomberg. After reducing staff to save on cost, he's now considering digging into his retirement savings to pay back his loan. I will never make that back, and I worked hard all my life to save my money, he said. Without a last-minute extension, he predicted that many small businesses in his Edmonton community will have no choice but to close. It's just crazy, he said. They'll be shutting down. So just talk about this a little bit. I know that a lot of small businesses, due to the pandemic, were receiving business loans, and a part of the loan included this grant. But as a reminder, in order for the grant or the loan or that portion of the loan to be forgivable, it needed to be repaid. And now we are looking down at the actual deadline. So this Thursday, January the 18th, is the deadline to repay the loan, or the forgivable portion will not be forgiven, and it will form as a part of the overall loan. There have been calls for an extension. So this Thursday's repayment deadline has already been pushed back multiple times from its original date at the end of December 2022. Most recently, it was pushed back to January 18 from the end of 2023, but business groups say that the latest extension still does not give vendors enough time. The Canadian Federation of Small Businesses says that the extension of the January 18 deadline at this stage is unlikely, but pledged that the organization will fight for one more until the very last minute. They're going to continuously fight until the very last minute. The CFIB has been urging the government to extend the deadline for another year to give small businesses more time to get back on their feet. Businesses were also offered the option to refinance their loans with a financial institution instead of repaying their outstanding debt by the deadline. Those that did have until March 28th to finalize new terms and still be eligible for the forgivable portion of the loan. But some business owners who look or took that route have run into difficulties. My bank specifically has this stance. If you're not in a position to repay the loan, you're not a strong candidate to repay one of their loans, which you kind of understand the lender's perspective. Shaw said that extending the deadline by another year would be excellent and would make a big difference for small businesses like his. Noting that while customer traffic remains low, he's noticing a small uptick. When asked if Ottawa would extend the deadline further, the government pointed to past extensions of the CEBA loan repayment deadline and other tweaks to the program, such as the refinancing option and the fact that only interest payments are required until the end of 2026. So, advice for businesses is stay on top of it. Businesses that don't repay their loans by Thursday have until 2026 to pay it back in full and will only be required to make payments on the 5% annual interest during that time. It is in your best interest to make probably monthly payments instead of hoping that the new term it's in your best interest to make probably monthly payments instead of hoping that by this new term, you'll have that full lump sum available to pay that principal plus the interest back. I can't stress it enough. Do it monthly and stay on top of it. It's the greatest investment that small business owners can make. So what are your thoughts on the repayment of this small business loan and the fact that the government tied a portion of the grant into the fact that they had a deadline in ensuring that the full loan be paid in order to take advantage of that grant? Do you feel that based on the economy that we are currently facing, that the government is doing all they can to assist small business owners, considering that, small business owners tend to be the backbone of any economy? What are your thoughts? Drop them in the comments below. So again, small businesses are bracing for Thursday's deadline to repay the loan or be faced with having the forgivable portion added to the principal amount outstanding on their loan. What are your thoughts? Drop them in the comments below. Another great article that I want to discuss is what Canadian investors need to know about Bitcoin ETFs. Yes, you heard that correctly. I know during the pandemic, we had a big excitement about Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies and blockchain, and everybody thought that they were an expert and a new wizard on this particular asset class. And it's interesting to note that now you can get Bitcoins in an ETF. So let's read this article for more information. What Canadian investors need to know about Bitcoin ETFs. So Bitcoin made headlines this week after US regulators Bitcoin made headlines this week after US regulatory changes made investing in cryptocurrency more accessible. And experts say investors should be knowledgeable about the industry and understand the risk before diving into cryptocurrency and related products. On Wednesday, the US Securities and Exchange Commission approved 11 exchange-traded funds, better known as ETFs, that invest directly into Bitcoin, with many opening trading platforms the next day. Experts and stakeholders believe the change is transformational for the industry and represents a major step towards legitimizing cryptocurrency. It's a big day for Bitcoin and its shareholders, and really the whole Bitcoin and crypto community. With more people taking interest in Bitcoin ETFs in light of the news, BNN Bloomberg spoke with Purpose Investment to discuss what their thoughts were. What is a Bitcoin ETF? An ETF is a way for investors to add exposure to an asset such as gold or oil without actually owning the product. These ETFs can be traded just like shares of a company. An ETF is an exchange traded fund, which is like a mutual fund, but it trades with a stock, meaning you can buy and sell at any point in time of the day. It's a category that's grown very quickly for many investors who prefer the convenience and liquidity of being able to invest directly through an ETF. The big difference between ETFs and the actual currency is that cryptocurrency requires a crypto wallet to exchange, while ETFs are available to anyone with a stock account and can be bought or sold at any time through stock trading platforms. You have to open an account with a crypto broker or deal with a crypto exchange, and then once you actually purchase your real crypto assets, you have to find a way to store it. These are all different things which a lot of people just weren't comfortable doing and didn't really want to do. So, what options are available in Canada? Spot Bitcoin ETFs have been available in Canada since 2021. As a result, there are several options for Canadians to invest in. Tapscott said there are about 20 different Canadian ETFs on the market, each with varying fees and levels of attractiveness. He pointed to Purpose Investments, CI, and 3iQ as among the biggest companies with Bitcoin ETFs that are offered in Canada. Canadians also access the new US-based ETFs if their stock trading accounts have access to US-based stocks. Additionally, Canadians can buy ETFs in Ethereum, which is the world's second largest cryptocurrency. They were just approved in the US, but they have been approved in Canada, and some other countries have been a product of them and are available. How does the US regulators change affect Canadian investors? Tapscott said that new US regulations themselves don't really affect Canadian investors, but they could pressure Canadian platforms to lower their fees in order to compete. If you're an investor, then you have the option to buy something that's got better liquidity and lower fees. I think you're probably going to make the switch, he said. It doesn't happen overnight. A lot of people are in these funds. They've got a taxable gain and they'd rather not sell. But I think over time, you're going to see money move away, or you're going to see Canadian players forced to cut their fees to match what the US providers are charging. Some Canadian players are already lowering fees to compete with their US counterparts. So an example is Fidelity Investments, which is among 11 to receive US approval earlier this year, recently dropped the fees of its Fidelity Advantage Bitcoin ETF account in Canada to 0.39%. Because Bitcoin ETFs trade like stocks, anyone with access to the New York Stock Exchange can invest in the US-based ETFs. What should investors consider with Bitcoin ETFs? Tapscott said investors need to understand that all crypto investments can be volatile, but that volatility can be a double-edged sword. Something can go up a lot or go down a lot in any period of time. So there's the potential for gains, but also for losses. I think that people need to appreciate that before diving in. What are the potential risks? Volatility remains the biggest risk when it comes to investing in cryptocurrency. And both experts agree that investors should be comfortable with volatile nature of the asset before investing. It's more volatile than other parts of the market, so people need to be wary that this is not something you make into the core of your portfolio. It's something that you can use as a complement to your portfolio and maybe offer diversification. So very interesting to note that Canada has already allowed Bitcoin ETFs. The US regulators have now also added ETFs, Bitcoin ETFs. And the biggest thing that's the takeaway for me that I'm hearing from a Canadian perspective is that this should now force Canadian companies that were offering Bitcoin ETFs to lower their fees as a result. That's what happens. It's economics 101. When there's no demand or no supply, the fees and values and such can go higher. But now that there's going to be more supply, because now the US is now offering the same ability to have Bitcoin ETFs, it will now force companies that were offering on the Canadian side to lower their fees as a result. So again, reminder, Bitcoin is extremely volatile. It has been mentioned many times in this article. We're not saying that it's not something that you shouldn't inquire about, investigate, and perhaps add to your portfolio if it meets your investor profile. But you do definitely need to ensure that you are risk averse, and diversification is key. You should not particularly have 100% of your assets locked up within Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. Okay, so what are your thoughts on the fact that the US is now allowing Bitcoin ETFs? Drop your comments below. Let us know what your thoughts are. And what do you think this will mean and do for the Canadian economy? And also answer, is this something that interests you? Is this something that is of interest to you? Drop your comments below. So now let's get into the financial tip of the day. So with even just talking about the Bitcoin, today's tip is about financial education and educating yourself. It is important that you take the time to learn as much as you can about money, about investing, about the economy that you are a part of. And no better place to start than by either A, picking up a book, listening to an audiobook, listening to a podcast, listening to this podcast. We are all on a journey of learning together. So education is the financial tip of the day. Get yourself financially educated. Now let's get into the Miss Moneybags affirmation. The Miss Moneybags money affirmation of the day. I use money to better my life and the lives of others. I use money to better my life and the lives of others. Let's say that together 3 times. I use money to better my life and the lives of others. I use money to better my life and the lives of others. I use money to better my life and the lives of others. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for watching Miss Moneybags Live. We'll see you again tomorrow.